Hello, nerds. Welcome back to the news. Remember, the gist of the show is I do the digging so you can get back to your back catalog or whatever you're doing. This week we have Legendary Band is having a 40-year anniversary with their pet T-Rex. On the gaming front, Hideo Kojima is about to make boss battles super easy, though there's probably some caveats there. Looks like Ultimate Spider-Man continues to do better than usually anticipated, and that's really interesting. Over on TV streaming, Daredevil has officially been confirmed for a second season. We're going to talk about the implications there. Lucasfilm, in the movie side of things, seems to be dipping their toes into other subgenres that kind of coincide with the sci-fi. We'll get into that. And in the rumor mill, those Doctor Who rumors just seem to be getting louder and louder. So, without any further ado, dip back, get comfy, grab a dubby, do the thing, and let's talk about the news, shall we? In music news this week, we have Legendary Scumdogs are celebrating a pretty big milestone with a giant prehistoric pet. Then we move on to a new festival that's been announced with a very stacked lineup up north, and a tour pairing that seems ripped straight from a 1980s metalhead's wet dream. All of that and plenty more for music stuff, so stick around, we're going to get into the details. Okay, so in the music section, let's talk about new music that has been announced or released this week. First up, we have Gwar. This is more than just new music, and I almost honestly put this in the comic book section just because the music section is quite large, but then comic books this week is also quite large, so we're keeping it here. Gwar is releasing Return of the Gorgor, which is a multimedia experience on July 25th. This is to celebrate 40 years of Gwar. That is a weird thing to say out loud. Gwar has been a thing for 40 years. Wow. Started in the 80s. That just kind of boggles my mind, not gonna lie. I'm gonna stop saying that, I promise. Anyway, so it is not just a record. It is a record, but it's not just a record. It's also a comic book that they're releasing, or a graphic novel if you want to be pretentious about it. It's documenting the travels of their pet T-Rex and how he has returned to the fold. Gorgor is his name. The music that is being released with this is telling the story, but also the comic book is telling the story. They have released a single for this record experience thing that is called Lot Lizard is the first one that's coming off of this. And we're going to talk about that in the That Just Happened that's coming up. Also, speaking of That Just Happened, I'm a little behind on the edits there, but they'll all be up eventually, I promise. So yeah, Lot Lizard is the first single. This is 40 years with the Scumdogs. Like, it's not quite David Brockie Scumdogs anymore, but it still has that essence. Whether or not it's a very strong essence still kind of remains to be seen. I guess that's up to the interpretation of the consumer, but yeah, interesting. Let's move on. Other new music this week is Byzantine, the new wave of American heavy metal band that honestly is a fair approximation of the genre if you're looking to describe it to somebody who is asking you annoying questions or just like trying to communicate with your normie friends like, no, this isn't just metal, these guys are kind of in the same vein as Lamb of God. It feels similar. Anyway, they have just announced that they're going to be releasing their new full-length record Harbingers on June 13th via Metal Blade Records. First single on the record is called Floating Chrysanthema. That's a lot of syllables in there, which is out now. Again, we're going to be talking about that in this week's That Just Happened. So that is new records and new things in music. Let's talk about tours and festivals next. So first on this list is the big dog right here. Well, one of the big dogs. Honestly, we have some really big festival news this week, but we also have Judas Priest and Alice Cooper have announced that they're going out on tour together, featuring Corrosion of Conformity on like 99% of the dates. there is one date on this tour that will not feature Corrosion of Conformity. If you follow the link in the description, it will tell you which one of those it is, and you can also get your tickets for this show. It will be starting in Biloxi, Mississippi on September 16th, running through Houston, Texas on October 26th, and we'll be going up into Canada a little bit, but mostly just going across the US. So pretty cool there. Next is the other really big piece. We only have two technically touring things to talk about, but they're both gigantic. This next one obviously is the one that I'm the most excited about, and it is the New England Metal and Hardcore Fest has finally announced this year's lineup. It is pretty eclectic when it comes to these two subgenres. You've got Madball on there, but your headliners are Lorna Shore, Cannibal Corpse, and Kubla Khan. Those are big names. Kubla Khan, honestly, surprised they got such high billing considering who else is on this list, not the least of which being Shadow of Intent, as I said, Madball, who are really kind of the only ones holding down the hardcore side of this, but whatever. Also super notable is the quote-unquote final performance of Bury Your Dead. There's actually a news piece around that announcement, but we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, super great lineup for this year's New England Metal and Hardcore Fest. I really wish I was out there. The show is happening September 20th at the Palladium Outdoors in Worcester, Massachusetts. So if you are in the area around about that time, go get tickets, link in the description. From there, we have regular ass news to talk about because that's all we had for tours and festivals. So in regular ass news, we have Sight for Sound Initiative. This is our first story. This is music adjacent, kind of. So Pat Sheridan, who is the guitar player for Fit for an Autopsy, is also the director of partnerships for Nevin Eyewear. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right. Nevin Eyewear has just announced that they've started this initiative with Pat, and there was another guy from the company that I didn't write his name down because, say it with me, class, I take amazing notes. So yeah, it's Pat and one of the other guys he works with at Nevin Eyewear. They are going to be in this initiative. Let me reword my thoughts. In this initiative, they're going to be providing touring bands, working bands with free eyewear. It will be prescription, sunglasses, or otherwise. If you wear it on your eyes and it is protective, I think that's the key here, because this is sort of an initiative to circumvent some of the cost that is attached to just being alive when you're in an industry that doesn't have any sort of healthcare options for you, unless you make a buttload of money, in which case you don't need the initiative. But so this is for working bands. So really any US based working band, and how they define working is you have to play a minimum of 75 shows a year in order to qualify for this. But if you are a US based band and you play at least 75 shows a year, you can follow the link down in the description, go to fill out the paperwork that they offer, and they will hook you up with some free eyewear. Prescription glasses, sunglasses, not just for bands either, but for the crews of the band. So if you have roadies that go out with you every time you go on tour, or every time you have a show, whatever, you have roadies, you have a stage manager, you have a tour manager, all of those people are going to qualify for this free eyewear. So that is freaking awesome. Just a small step towards the direction of legitimizing art as an actual career, especially when it comes to music as art. So that's pretty awesome. That's all I really got on this piece. Let's move on to the next one, and that is Weezer. Okay, so a lot has happened with Weezer since we last spoke. We didn't speak about Weezer last week. Just about a day, 2 days, I believe, actually, after the last episode went up, some craziness happened with the bass player's wife. So bass player, I'm gonna lose it in my notes. Bass player Scott Schreiner, his wife, Jillian Lauren, was shot by LA police and then was brought up on attempted murder charges and was arrested and taken to jail. So what the hell happened? It's not exactly what you might think. It is kind of crazy, so don't get it twisted. This is definitely a bonkers story. Scott was not at his home at the time that this happened, so he was not a part of any of this. Obviously, he was with his wife when she was getting her shoulder patched up from being shot by the police. But there was reason for her, she was carrying a gun. Let me back this up. All right, so I believe it was Friday night. The police in the area around Scott Sheridan's house in whatever the neighborhood is that he lives were following a suspect who was, I don't even remember what he was a suspect of because that's kind of secondary to all of this. He was running through this neighborhood. They were following him through said neighborhood. When they got to the Sheridan's house, or the report almost makes it sound like maybe they were at one of the neighbors of the Sheridans, because it didn't sound like it was the place of residence for Jillian Lauren. So she came out holding a pistol, pointing it at police, according to their police report. And the police warned her to drop her weapon multiple times. She did not. She fires. Again, it's kind of vague whether or not it was at police or if it was at the suspect that they were following before this went down. She fired at someone. After she fired, one of the reports says that she fired at them. One of the reports from the police officers that were at the scene said that she fired at them. Another report said she fired first, but didn't say which direction she was shooting. So it's a little bit murky here, but she did make the first shot and then was neutralized, let's say, by the LAPD. LAPD then took her into custody, again, charging her with attempted murder. She is currently out on bail for $1 million, which means she had to pay $100,000 for bail to a bail bondsman, assuming she didn't put up $1 million in cash or property, because I'm pretty sure California still does that with their bail bonds. So yeah, that's insane. That is honestly nuts. The suspect that the police were originally chasing reportedly has been taken into custody as well for whatever crime he is alleged to have committed. As this develops, because it is a developing story, we will be keeping tabs on it. Also of note here, Scott Schreiner did still perform at Coachella. Maybe we did talk about this last week, kind of in passing, because it was still very much developing, or it could have, honestly, I could be because I've talked about it with so many people at this point. Maybe I'm just remembering those conversations, whatever. Scott was, since he was not there, he had a couple of things to say to TMZ, which is kind of irrelevant, but the band Weezer that he plays for did still perform at Coachella. It was still a great show by all accounts. That you can go look up setlist.fm and see the songs that they played. They played some real deep cuts. They played a Master of Puppets cover. It was still an epic show. So very interesting turn of events. Again, as things kind of progress here, we'll be keeping tabs, and probably going to be a little while before we get a proper update, because the legal system moves very slow, especially when people have lots of money. So it is what it is. Let's move on. Next piece in regular ass news is a little bit of a tour update, kind of, but also very much regular ass news worthy. And that is A Killer's Confession has just lost their drummer. We talked about the fact that they're going on tour currently with Ventana, and I can't remember the other band, the opener, whoever the opener is, A something. They have had quite the week, according to their social medias. They had their van breakdown, so they have had to find alternate means to get themselves and their gear to their shows over the course of the last few days. And then in the midst of all that, their drummer just up and quit. And to replace their drummer, Keegan King, they have now brought in Daniel Fox for the foreseeable future as their drummer. He's not just the replacement, he's the new guy. And it is noteworthy because Daniel Fox also, at one point, I don't know how recently, was in Mushroomhead. So we now have Stitch, Rob Thomas. Is that Stitch's real name? Did I just make the connection that Stitch's real name is also the name of the lead singer for Matchbox 20? Am I remembering this correctly? I might be misremembering. Either way, Stitch and J-Man are currently on tour, Stitch playing for Ventana. I saw a news report indicate that maybe Stitch was also part of A Killer's Confession these days. I don't think that's accurate. I'm pretty sure he's just doing Ventana, and then because they have a bunch of former Mushroomhead dudes on the bill, they're also doing a short Mushroomhead set with the former Mushroomhead dudes. Now they added one more to the mix, which is crazy, man. Yeah, so it's been a hell of a week for the dudes in A Killer's Confession. They still have about 9 dates left on this tour, and they are holding true to that. So if you are going to see them, definitely give them my love and go smash some skulls in the pit. That is what we have for Regular S News this week, which brings us to our suggestion for what the hell you should be listening to this week. We're going a little tech death this week, and that is Cytotoxin. The name of the record is Biographite. The lead single on this record is freaking amazing. If you're looking for some just brutal technical death metal, that is exactly what you're getting with this. I believe Blabbermouth gave it like an 8 out of 10, which it's kind of hard to get anything lower than that from Blabbermouth, but everywhere else is given it at least that high. So great record, definitely not for the weak stomach. It is about a post-apocalyptic world where there's, cytotoxins in the air, like that's kind of radiation and things, and it's a banger. If you are into the heavy, go check this record out. That is your suggestion for the week.
Oh, hey nerds. So, just here to remind you this week that subscribing is great. You should do that. It really doesn't cost you much, and it helps us make this show happen. It also keeps me fed, so that's a good thing too, right? You don't want a dragon to get hungry, so hit the subscribe button, tell all your friends. We've gotten a lot of comments recently talking about how, people think we do a good job here, so let your friends know if that's the case, and it really helps us out even more that way, so yeah, there you go. Either way, thank you for subscribing, thank you for feeding me, let's get back to nerdy things. Okay, bye.
And now for some gaming and tech news that you might have missed, considering you are playing your games and or just out living your life. Got a couple of things on the docket for gaming and tech this week, not the least of which being Hideo Kojima has kind of hinted at the idea of making boss battles for the next Death Stranding game very easy. Plus, the gameplay look at Marathon has finally dropped, like we talked about last week. We're gonna get into that. And Capcom has released a surprising update to a game that didn't necessarily need it, but the community is going crazy about it. So we're gonna talk about all of that and then a bit more in gaming and tech. So put your controllers down and let's talk about the news, shall we? Follow-ups and corrections for gaming and tech. We have a couple. So follow up first for Nintendo Switch 2. This one isn't exactly tariff related necessarily, but it is Switch 2 related, which kind of vicariously relates it to tariffs, but not exactly money wise. What are we talking about? GameCube controllers. So those recreated GameCube controllers that are specific for the Switch 2 because they have all of the extra buttons, i.e. the C button and the Hall Effect was it the Hall Effect joysticks? I can't remember. But at the very least, it has the C button. It's shaped like a GameCube controller, which everybody loves. They're very specific. It would seem that the only games compatible with this very specific controller are only going to be the ones that are part of the Nintendo Online GameCube tier. So if you are not paying for the entire Nintendo Online catalog, the highest tier of which is the one that gets you access to the GameCube, I forget exactly how much it costs a month, but it is the most expensive option, then you would be wasting your money to purchase the new Nintendo GameCube remake controllers from Nintendo. Now, there is indication that the older GameCube controllers that have been adapted with Bluetooth connectivity and such might still work, though there is no guarantee anyway at the moment. Nobody's got the hardware in their hands to test such theories. So as it stands now, at the very least, just the brand new remakes of those controllers are not compatible with anything else, but it very possibly could be all versions of that controller will not be compatible with anything on the Switch 2, which kind of sucks, but is what it is. Next, we have Death Stranding. Death Stranding 2. We just got word from Hideo Kojima himself that there's going to be an interesting thing for the easiest difficulty setting on Death Stranding 2. So, when you die, if you die during a boss battle, there is going to be a new option on that menu screen. It used to be just a continue or quit option, and now there is, I forget the exact wording that they use, but basically it's going to be an option to continue the story without finishing the boss battle. So you can continue through the game without ever beating any one of the bosses. You just die every time you come up to a boss. And instead of getting the boss battle and the subsequent cinematic that happens at the end of the boss battle with every Kojima game, that's very specifically even with the Death Stranding games, you will now be getting a novelized version of the cinematic that you would have been able to watch had you actually defeated the boss. You do not have to take this option. You do not have to take this super easy option. You can go back and fight the boss again after he has killed you the first time, and as many times as you want, presumably. Or if you get fed up and you just want to finish the story, you have that option now. So again, there is no official word as to if this is going to be through all difficulty modes, though that seems unlikely given Hideo's history with the gaming industry, but also like making this easy for the easiest setting kind of also lines up with the current situation in the gaming industry. So yes, as we get more details, because there will be more details associated with this, especially by the time the game releases, we'll know for sure if it's all difficulty levels or just the easiest difficulty setting. We'll be keeping tabs, but we don't know that information yet, so let's move on. Next up is another update. This is for a game that was an unexpected update. This is patch notes for Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade, the Arcade Classics, that's what it was. Both versions of the game, there's the first one and the second one, both of these games are receiving this update, I believe, as we're talking right now, because it's supposed, April 16th. So I'm filming on the 16th. This is going to be live by the time this video is live. So what they're doing is they're adding a versus mode to every game in the arsenal for both of these collections, because these are both collections. Not just that, but for X-Men versus Street Fighter, you will have now the option to play one of the 3 competitive versions of the game instead of just the last update. I'm very unfamiliar with the competitive scene around this game, but apparently, according to Maximilian, because he's the one who has the best breakdown of this, go check out Maximilian, dude, if you need more details here. But according to Maximilian, there are 3 different versions of X-Men versus Street Fighter that they use in the competitive scene, and they all have different pluses and minuses. And before, for this collection, you could only play the final version of that, even though in the arcades there are 3 separate versions. Now you have the ability to switch between all 3 versions, which is pretty freaking awesome. Also, they're going to be giving menu button options so that you can avoid accidentally going into the menu while you're mid-match. And also, there's going to be new art and new music provided to just the second collection. I don't believe that one's going to the first. I think that's exclusive to the second Marvel vs. Capcom collection. So all in all, pretty awesome. Again, not a thing that any of the fandom was necessarily expecting. A lot of this is things that the fandom has wanted, but kind of have acquiesced to the idea that maybe it's not going to happen, and that's fine, I guess. Well, it happened and everybody's happy. So there you go. That's what we got for follow-ups and corrections. We do have one trailer. Well, it's kind of a series of trailers, but it's one game that has finally released some trailers, and that is Marathon. We're going to talk about that real quick. So we talked about this last week, how they announced they're going to be, they had this big whole AR thing that led up to a tease that said we're going to be releasing an actual trailer next week. Well, it is now next week, and they did a little bit more than that. They have a reveal stream, which is about 3 hours, if I'm remembering correctly. They have a cinematic story video, which is approximately a little bit more than 8 minutes, and then they have actual gameplay trailer, which is about 3 minutes, and then there's another trailer that is kind of a hybrid of all of it that's like 1.5 minutes, 1.5 and 40 seconds or something along those lines. Just kind of building the hype up to this game. I think one of the reasons that they're getting this hype machine going like they are is because this is not going to be a free-to-play game, which A lot of people thought when it was teased previously that this was going to be free to play to some degree. Maybe if they were going to do a story mode, that wouldn't be free to play, but the multiplayer is going to be free to play. It's not the case. It is going to be a proper release title that you're going to have to pay money for. I have not seen any sort of price point just yet that has been confirmed. There's a lot of guesses out there as to how much it's going to cost to purchase the game. Is it going to be, I think I saw one as low as $30 to purchase the game, and I've seen them go all the way up to the $70 price tag that we're seeing most AAA titles released at this point. Anyway, a lot of people are drawing comparisons between this and I'm going to forget the name of that other game that lasted a week. The hero shooter game that Sony put out. I'm totally drawing a blank. I apologize. Please, somebody down in the comments, let me know. Either way, Concord, there it is, I remembered. So people are drawing comparisons between this and Concord because Concord also was a familiar gameplay style game that had a paywall that was not a free-to-play game. But I think there's a pretty dramatic difference here in that Concord was a brand new title with no established fan base, and that isn't exactly the situation with Marathon. Marathon is older than Halo by the guys who originally created Halo, so there's already some name draw for both of those reasons. More so because it's Bungie than the fact that it's Marathon, but still Bungie, you already have an expectation here. I don't understand why people are being so critical of the fact that it's not going to be a free-to-play game when everyone in the FPS community who plays Halo for the first 2 years of its lifespan were absolutely critical of the fact that they released it too soon and that shouldn't have been a free-to-play. They should have put it behind a paywall so that way they could have taken the extra development time. Like the community is so back and forth on some of these things, it just boggles the mind. So it is going to be behind a paywall. The trailer, though, some really cool stuff in the trailer. Shades of Apex Legends as far as how the story is developed and honestly the elements of the story. There's some shades of Apex Legends there. Also, as far as gameplay is concerned, shades of, what's the extraction shooter I'm trying to think of? Tarkov, there we go. Shades of Tarkov in there a little bit. It's not quite that ultra realistic. It's very sci-fi actually in the storytelling mode, but like as far as it being an extraction shooter, that's kind of where the comparisons end to Tarkov. But yeah, super interesting. The cinematic, the 8+ minute one is the one to watch just because it is of a level that you're expecting out of like the Love, Death and Robots series on Netflix. Like it's that level of storytelling. A little discombobulated and a little kind of murky as far as what exactly is going on, but I think that's by design. I think they're trying to make it a little confusing to create intrigue, and it worked with me because that was really intriguing. So, there's that. That's everything I got to say, I think, about Marathon. That's what we got for trailers. Let's talk about some regular-ass news. We only have one piece of regular-ass news, and it is a tech piece, and it has to do with Patreon. So Patreon, for those that don't know, or if you've been living under a rock for the last, 15 years that Patreon's been a thing? Maybe not quite that long. Either way, Patreon, the paywall for anyone site. You can go create an account on Patreon and start posting whatever content kind of to your account and then ask people for money to see said content. Well, they're upping their game a little bit. This is honestly something that I'm very confused as to why it took them this long to implement, and that is streaming. They are going to start allowing streaming on their platform. It is currently in its beta phase. They are testing it with some creators on the platform, and there is a plan to roll it out very soon to all creators on the platform. So you might honestly be seeing me on the next off season do a little bit more streaming action that's going to go behind the paywall over at Patreon. I do have a Patreon, it's just very neglected. So they're going to be doing that. They're also working on an even longer term plan so that there will be integration with OBS, which is kind of awesome because right now, like YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok technically has integration, I think, but you need a third-party integration to mitigate between them. Very, very interesting. Rumble has no integration into OBS. It's very clunky if you're trying to stream from OBS into Rumble, but it is possible. Just not going to be the same. So that they're trying to fix that for the Patreon situation. Also of note that is going to be changing with the live streaming elements that are going to be added to Patreon is they're going to be adding the ability to purchase individual streams so that you don't have to, because you can already purchase chunks of content. It's up to the content creator. Content creator can say, all right, so you don't want to give me $3 a month or $5 a month or whatever Patreon creators request, right? So you don't want to give them the monthly payment. You just want to give them like $10 and get 6 months worth of videos that are already posted for that $10 or whatever the compromise is. That's already an option. The streams, you're going to be, as a creator, you're going to be able to offer it to your audience for the single purchase, or you can even gift them to certain audience members. The rundown that I read of it was not clear as to whether or not it would be something you gift to all of your audience, or if it's just going to be something you gift to your audience on an individual member level. We'll see when it officially rolls out, but pretty interesting. Great kind of expansion for creators to start to make a living. It's a great thing to offer more options for that. Hopefully more people are going to be able to do that. That is what we have though for regular ass news. It's our one piece. Let's get into suggestion this week for gaming and tech. Our suggestion is Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection. With we already have the rollback netcode, we already have the great online experience, and now we have proper versus mode. So you can do couch co-op versus, you can do online versus. It doesn't have to be arcade style the whole time. And, you know, you've got the additional versions of X-Men versus Street Fighter to choose from now. It's just, it's kind of as good as it's going to get, I think, for this game. So what a better time to do it. And like, if you don't already have it and you're a fighting game enthusiast, if you will, like, it's going to be a pain in the ass to try and collect all these games individually. Why not just pick up at least one, if not both, of the Capcom Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting collections, and, you know, do yourself a favor, because those are some of the best fighting games out there. So that's your suggestion for the week. Go play some Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Edition. Yeah, whatever. You know what I mean. All right, nerds. Before we go any further, as per usual, this is the season of the merch push. So go check out the link in the description and you can get yourself one of these gaming nerd shirts. This is the special shirt for the month. It is going to be active for at least 2 weeks. It did take me a couple of days longer. It literally took me like a day and a half longer to get up than anticipated. So it didn't go up until Wednesday when it was supposed to go up on Monday, but you know, things happen. So yes, gaming nerd, your specialty nerd, I think I'm calling them the special nerd shirts. So that's the month of April is this special gaming nerd shirt. I'm pretty proud of this design, not gonna lie. It's more than just the t-shirt like we have on the other ones. We also have the hoodie, we have stickers, we have a coffee mug, there's a metal water bottle so you can put your W in it and, you know, use that as it's not a great shaker bottle, but it works. So go check out the Generally Nerdy store, linked down in the description, so you can get your specialty deal. I will be running a coupon code. Hopefully I will have that ready by the time I'm editing this so I can put it on the screen. Otherwise we'll just talk about it next week. Either way, go get your special nerd gaming nerd shirt. Yeah, this is new territory for me in the designing of things, and I'm having fun with it. So go check it out. Go get something while you're at the store, and let's get back to the show. In comic books and books this week, talking about the news that is the sequential arts. We have some more numbers confirming that people might actually like the Ultimate Universe version of one very special superhero better than the main version right now, and we're going to get into that. It's kind of a continuation of last week's conversation. Plus, the King of Monsters is back to apparently destroy the Marvel Universe once again. And then, you know, for old school comic book readers and, you know, people who appreciate the greats, we have some pretty cool news from a certain magician, if you will. Coming back to one of the big two, we're keeping this vague in the intro, and it's kind of vague story to begin with anyway, so why not? But that is some of the things we're talking about today in comics. Let's get into the comic book news, and then you can get back to reading your comic books, shall we? All right, so follow-ups, corrections. Let's talk about some comic book follow-ups. March numbers are in, and we now know that Tom Brevoort is really full of poopy. So Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, the graphic novel, so the paperback or the trade collections, I guess. I don't know that it was necessarily paperback or hardcover. It was just the graphic novel sales. So collection 1 and collection 2 are 2 of the top 3 sales books in the month of March. The main universe Amazing Spider-Man book didn't even crack the top 20 according to Diamond sales number or ICVC sales numbers. That's insane. The fact that we are seeing the alternate version of a character outsell the main version of that character really should be saying something to these executives over at Marvel. But as we talked about last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago now, it's just not. Brevoort has said that he doesn't see the correlation between the fact that in the Ultimate Universe, we're getting what we want with Peter and Mary Jane. In the main universe, the Amazing Spider-Man book, they have completely subverted the expectation that the fans have for Peter's personal life in that he's no longer married to Mary Jane. And the comic book readers are speaking with their wallets, and they're just not listening over at Marvel. They're actively holding their fingers in their ears going, nah, I can't hear you. I mean, what else is there to do other than just to stop buying Marvel art altogether? Oh, yeah, so that's our one follow-up. Let's talk about some regular-ass news. First up, we have, this is kind of a follow-up, but it's a follow-up to the movie section. Werewolf by Midnight, the Disney Plus special edition, the very first, I'm pretty sure, very first Marvel at least, Disney Plus special edition, or special presentation rather, movie is what it is getting a prequel. It is actually getting, or a sequel rather, is getting a sequel. The prequel is a completely different story for, I think, I don't know, the same section. Anyway, it's getting a sequel. It's just going to be a comic book sequel and not a movie sequel. So it is going to be featuring Michael Giacchino, I think is how you say his name. He's going to be writing instead of directing the movie. He's writing the book. I forget exactly who the art is from. As we have heard again from Brevoort himself, who is the CEO currently of Marvel, I'm pretty sure. He's one of the executives over there. He's the one that makes these calls for the print side of things. He said, in no uncertain terms, and I'm going to be paraphrasing, but still, in no uncertain terms, that the comic books are just grounds for testing what they want to do in the movies. So that has Giacchino very hopeful that we will be getting some sort of sequel to Werewolf by Night rather, in another Disney Plus special presentation, but as it stands right now, apparently it didn't do well enough for them to give it the live action treatment, so they're giving it the comic book treatment. So that's what we got on that one. Next up, we have a new book has been announced by Marvel. Again, Marvel. We have follow-up to the Godzilla vs. Marvel. It is going to be called Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe. It's a new 5-book miniseries going to be on shelves in July. I mean, presumably the first book made money, so that's why they greenlit the second book. Jerry Dugan is going to be writing, and Javier Garron is the artist. I'm not familiar with either of their work, though I'm pretty sure Jerry was the one that was writing the first book. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Next up in regular ass news, we have Grant Morrison announcement. We have his official return to quote-unquote superhero comics, as they put it. So Grant Morrison has announced that there's going to be an official announcement as to, the details of what this is, but they are returning to comic books to one of the big two. Didn't specify which of the big two, but will be coming back. Morrison will be writing for either DC or Marvel sometime soon. Morrison made it clear that the writer is somebody that they have worked with previously and that they actually really are super happy with working with again. And they love dearly is the direct quote. And it's also said to be an unexpected team up. So that seems to imply team up with Marvel, but also could be talking about who the artist is. Even though, again, they said that it is somebody that they love dearly. So I don't know exactly what that means. The announcement, though, should be coming out very soon, again, according to Grant Morrison. So that's what we got on that one. It's kind of a non-piece, but it's Grant Morrison, man. He's one of the greatest comic book writers ever, and yeah. So continuing on, we have, like I said, we do have a prequel book that we're talking about that is also a prequel to a live-action movie, though this one is a Snyder Cut fanboy's dream, Snyder Universe, I guess, fanboy's dream, because it is a prequel to Rebel Moon. This is Rebel Moon, where'd it go? Rebel Moon Nemesis. So it's going to be prequel to the Rebel Moon movies that is going to be giving us the origin story of the Nemesis character from the Rebel Moon movies. The writer on this one is going to be Gail Simone. Eek. Ooh, I don't know. I guess Zack Snyder has some sort of workable relationship with Simone, so because she's done work previously on a different title for him. I don't remember exactly what it was, but seems that the Snyder fanboys are super cool with Gail Simone, so I don't know, maybe let her write for them. Anyway, artist will be Federico Bertoni. Again, the book's going to be an origin story for the titular Nemesis character, and it will be published by Titan Comics. I don't think there is a release date for that. Oh yes, there is. July 16th is when it's going to be hitting bookshelves. Don't know exactly how long of a book it's going to be. Presumably not super long. It might just be a one-off graphic novel, so they might just release it all at once in book form. I don't know. I didn't see those details. If we find those details, we'll follow up. Until then, let's move on to our suggestion for the week. This week's suggestion is a book that honestly I kind of forgot about a little bit. It is a Jonathan Hickman book though, and it is called East of West from Image Comics. So it is one of Hickman's, it's a creator-owned title because it's Image Comics and that's the way they work. But Jonathan Hickman, Nick Dragotta, it is a sci-fi western. I have to read this just because it's a whole lot of stuff. Sci-fi western in the apocalypse that deals with the Four Horsemen. It's a lot of concepts that don't seem to, work together when you say them out loud like that, but on paper, it works super well. So it is from 2013 to 2019 is when the comic book ran, again, on Image Comic Books. The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse are real, powerful figures manipulating events towards the end times, but death has gone rogue. Just a crazy escapist kind of book, which is exactly why you read comic books to begin with. So go check out East of West. That is your suggestion for the week. And then it's time to switch gears into the TV news or streaming or whatever you call the glowing box you're staring into when you're not off staring into other glowing boxes. I'll catch you up on this news so you can get back to your binge, right? So in TV news, it looks like there's a confirmation that we're going to be getting at least one more season of everyone's favorite fungal horror show. Also, in a similar vein, The Man Without Fear isn't quite done cleaning up Hell's Kitchen just yet. And then, speaking of bad decisions, Patty's Pub is coming back for its 17th season, and then there's a couple of things, a crossover event and a crazy guest star that's technically in the rumor mill, but still weird things going on with It's Always Sunny. And then a few other things in TV. Again, TV is a small section for us this week. This trend of not much going on in TV streaming has me a little worried, but let's talk about the news, shall we? Follow-ups and corrections. Kind of all we got this week in TV. We do have a trailer to talk about, but let's just hit all of these follow-ups and corrections. First up, The Last of Us. Officially been greenlit for a third season. Kind of all we got on there. Let's move on. Next up, the Ghostbusters animated show that we've been keeping tabs on that is going over at Netflix has a production studio now in tow. That production studio is Flying Bark Productions, which you may or may not recognize that name. If you do, then congratulations. If you don't, it's because you didn't watch the Rise of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Rise of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the subsequent movie is the kind of the biggest thing that they are known for. They also did work on the Marvel What If series on Disney Plus. Also, they're doing work on the new Avatar series, the Aang series for the Avatar Last Airbenders continuation. So kind of prestigious. They've got a lot of good nerdy work under their belts. Let's hope that work continues. I don't know, the Rise of TMNT, maybe not the best example, but still. Ghostbusters, super excited. Next is Daredevil Born Again. Speaking of new seasons announced and greenlit, we have season 2 announced. It is set for March of 2026. So presumably they're already into production. Actually, we've already had some leaks of production images from season 2. We're seeing a lot more Matt Murdock in the black suit. Continuing on. Next up is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. We actually have a big rumor with this show as well, but the update here, the follow-up, if you will, is season 17 premieres on July 9th over on FXX, where it's been for a number of years at this point. And also, there's going to be an Abbott Elementary that show that I don't know that anybody really watches. This is kind of an act of desperation. There's going to be a crossover episode. I don't know the numbers for Abbott Elementary. I just know that It's Always Sunny is vastly more popular. But yeah, there's going to be a crossover episode with Abbott Elementary that has been confirmed for this season. It's a little weird, kind of feels a little Jump the Sharky for me, but it's Always Sunny. It's very strange. Let me just say this kind of nerd rant moment. Very strange that the subversive nature of It's Always Sunny used to be like, oh my god, did this show just get canceled because they're making abortion jokes, to now being accepted into mainstream comedic avenues, that they're having this crossover episode with Abbott Elementary. Like, this is a weird concept for me to wrap my head around, but apparently it's happening. So that's what we got. Let's move on. We do have, like I said, we have that one trailer to talk about, which is a new show on Apple TV Plus called Murderbot, starring Alexander Skarsgård. This looks hilarious. It's all about a robot in the future who is programmed, kind of the 3 laws situation with Isaac Asimov, programmed to not hurt people. His AI kind of becomes self-aware, and he's able to reprogram himself, and he can do things that you're not supposed to do as a robot. And it looks pretty, like I said, pretty freaking funny. Kind of dark comedy, but still. Will begin airing on May 16th over on Apple TV Plus. Go check out the trailer and then come back and talk to me about it, because I'm gonna watch this. This is gonna be a thing that gets watched. Like I said, no regular ass news this week, but we do have a suggestion. Another show I kind of forgot about until was trying to rack my brain for what we should be talking about. Suggestion this week is Penny Dreadful from Showtime. Didn't find where it is currently streaming, though I'm pretty certain it's currently streaming somewhere. Otherwise, Captain Jack Sparrow and whatnot. But Penny Dreadful, gothic horror that was on Showtime from 2014 to 2016. I'm talking about the original series, not the second series that was far less good, but the original series went for 2 seasons. Actually, no, I think it was actually 3 seasons. It was shockingly good. Ava Green kind of carried it a little bit. Josh Hartnett, though, really fantastic. And then you get werewolves and vampires and Frankenstein's monster and just this British production. There's so much great I could say about this. It's not a perfect show, but it is damn good. So that is your suggestion for the week. Go find a way to watch the original Penny Dreadful series that, again, aired on Showtime from 2014 to 2016. That is your suggestion for the week. And then it's time for TV news. The stuff you want to know about that's going on the big screen, or potentially going to be going on the big screen eventually. Yeah. Updates this week. Lucasfilm might be trying other genres inside of their science fiction. We have a casting announcement for the genre for a movie that is just giant monsters punching each other, because apparently we need a higher profile for such a movie. I don't get that one. And we have a new trailer for a new Stephen King-based movie that has Loki and Luke Skywalker in it, which is kind of cool. So yeah, all of that, a little bit more, and here come the details. Okay, follow-ups, corrections. In the movie section, we have one. It's Minecraft officially greenlit for a sequel movie. To which nobody is surprised that this announcement has happened because, oh my god, it had a gigantic opening weekend and an even more gigantic second weekend. $200 million on your second weekend, breaking $200 million on your second weekend when you're a meme movie, of course you're going to get a sequel. So yeah, that's what we got. We do have one trailer to talk about. Also, it is a new Stephen King adaptation for a short story called Life of Chuck. So it is a short story adaptation starring Tom Hiddleston and Mark Hamill with Chiwetel Ejiofor. I'm sorry, I can never say his name correctly. And Karen Gillan. It will be out in June, and I mean, I haven't read the short story yet, but my girlfriend freaking loved it and is pushing it on me, so that is the next thing I'm reading. But yeah, it looks great. This is less of a story trailer. It doesn't exactly tell you anything that happens in the movie. This is more of a mood-setting trailer, and I think it does the job really well. So there's that. Let's move right along. That's our only trailer. Let's talk about some regular-ass news. First up, the one that I'm the most trepidatious about. I was going to say excited, but I'm definitely kid-gloving it a little bit with this one, and that is Star Wars. Lucasfilm is now apparently developing a horror movie inside of the Star Wars universe. This has been confirmed to be the official thing that they're saying they're doing. They're telling us that it's happening, and very intrigued by what the hell this might mean. No official word if it is planned as a movie or a Disney Plus series. It does seem to be that they do the best when you're breaking new ground in the movie side of things than in the TV side of things. So that's why I put it here, but we don't know for certain either way, so let's move on. Other regular ass news is Godzilla vs. Kong 2, or Godzilla Kong 2, or however the hell they're going to be billing it. It has announced a cast listing that is including Sam Neill from Jurassic Park. So Jurassic Godzilla Kong? It's so weird that they have like such big name actors in the Monkey Punch lizard movie, right? Like, Sam Neill announced casting alongside Caitlin Dever, Jack O'Connell, Dan Stevens is returning, Matthew Modine, Alicia Debnam Carey, and Delroy Lindo. Dan Stevens is always a win. Honestly, Sam Neill is always a win. So maybe they'll pull off the impossible and have us give a shit about the human characters in this one. I highly, highly doubt it, but like, it's possible. The release, no statement as to, the plot details for this movie from the studio just yet, aside from a very brief statement that mentions a cataclysmic world-ending threat that Godzilla and Kong are going to be facing. So that's interesting. It is set for March 26th of 2027. For its release date. So it's going to be a while. That is all of our regular ass news. Let's talk about our suggestion for the week. In the same vein of Godzilla vs. Kong, let's do Pacific Rim as your suggestion for the week. This will scratch all of your kaiju and mech bots itches from when you were childhood. This movie is not deep, is not an excellent cinematographic journey through how a movie is amazing. This is purely for your inner child, and it does all of the things great. I mean, what more could you want outside of, giant mechs punching giant kaiju? Like, this is that's exactly what you get in this movie. It doesn't waste too much time trying to get you to care about the human characters, because again, who really cares about human characters in giant monster punch giant monster type movies? And so you get exactly what you go in for. Guillermo del Toro directs the hell out of this movie because it was incredibly fun. He did that because he couldn't have his inner 12-year-old shut up without doing this. So give your inner 12-year-old a break. Let them revel in the awesomeness that is Pacific Rim, and you do the same. That is your suggestion for the week. All right, nerds, before we go any further, as per usual, this is the season of the merch push. So go check out the link in the description and you can get yourself one of these gaming nerd shirts. This is the special shirt for the month. It is going to be active for at least 2 weeks. It did take me a couple of days longer. It literally took me like a day and a half longer to get up than anticipated. So it didn't go up until Wednesday when it was supposed to go up on Monday, but you know, things happen. So yes, gaming nerd, your specialty nerd, I think I'm calling them the special nerd shirts. So that's the month of April is this special gaming nerd shirt. I'm pretty proud of this design, not gonna lie. It's more than just the t-shirt like we have on the other ones. We also have the hoodie, we have stickers, we have a coffee mug, there's a metal water bottle so you can put your W in it and, you know, use that as it's not a great shaker bottle, but it works. So go check out the Generally Nerdy store, linked down in the description, so you can get your specialty deal. I will be running a coupon code. Hopefully I will have that ready by the time I'm editing this so I can put it on the screen. Otherwise, we'll just talk about it next week. Either way, go get your special nerd gaming nerd shirt. Yeah, this is new territory for me in the designing of things, and I'm having fun with it. So go check it out. Go get something while you're at the store, and let's get back to the show.
Maybe. It's classified.
And then, nerds, it's time to wade into the murky depths that is the rumor mill. As per usual, these are to be taken with a gigantic grain of salt. Carry on my wayward son cue music right here, because that's kind of where we're going with this. Seems like the rumor mill is turning a little bit crazy this week. To start things off, we have the Harry Potter confirmations in the confirmations and refutations section. Beyond that, there is chatter about potential issues, cancellation even, if you will, over in the Doctor Who side of the nerddom. And then we have whispers of a potential return of a fan favorite science fiction series that, you know, is based on wormholes and gates of a certain kind. You know where I'm going with this. There's that and quite a bit more. We have a lot to cover in the rumor mill, so let's go. Confirmations, refutations. We don't always have confirmations, refutations, but when we do, they're kind of epic. So this week, the confirmation that we have is the Harry Potter cast. I almost said Harry Past. Harry Potter cast confirmations. We now know for absolute certain that John Lithgow is going to play Dumbledore. That was the one that we knew before, but so that's not really that news. But Papa Isadu, who will in fact be playing Severus Snape. That was very much a rumor before. We now know it to be absolute fact. And Janet McTeer as Professor McGonagall, plus Nick Frost apparently finalized that contract and is going to be playing Hagrid. We know these to be the case. Beyond that, I don't know that anybody really cares much about them. Well, no, we don't know who's going to be playing Harry, Ron, or Hermione, so there's still going to be some surprises here. We'll be keeping tabs. Let's move on. We have a new source. One for an old rumor. So new sources for old rumors is Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the reboot movie. The rumor now has it that Ryan Gosling and his production company are the ones who are going to be producing this movie. I was unable to confirm this as news from even the trades aren't necessarily talking about this. This is just a rumor going around. So, but this is just an updated rumor for the fact that Killer Clowns is even getting a reboot, because we don't know that for certain either. So, or do we? I don't know. There's something in the back of my brain saying that maybe we have actually talked about that being actual fact at this point. Either way, the rumor is Ryan Gosling's production company is going to be producing it. Don't know that for certain. It's a news source. We're not going to be talking about percentage-wise. Let's get to the actual new rumors so we can talk about those percentages. So first up in new rumors is Doctor Who is getting canceled. That's strong language. That's not exactly the way this is going. So after the numbers came out, we talked about those last week. It seems that there are now a number of different rumors around the cancellation of the current state of Doctor Who. We know that they are going on a hiatus. The hiatus has not been made known as to the length of which we're going to be waiting for new Doctor Who content. We also have heard rumor about the current Doctor, what's his name? Ncuti Gatwa, who is playing the Doctor right now. We've heard rumor about him wanting to be no longer attached to Doctor Who. We also are hearing that Disney is reportedly demanding a new showrunner for the show because it's doing so poorly since they bought it. Surprise, surprise. Also, current showrunner Russell T Davies is the one that has kind of told us that we're going on hiatus. So it seems Doctor Who will never 100% be canceled. It is too popular of a franchise to be gone for good. And especially considering that they've written in a way to reboot the franchise every so many years. So the more likely thing here is that it is just getting shelved for maybe a year or so, or maybe a little bit longer, who knows. And then it's going to come back in a different iteration with a different showrunner, a different star. That, I think, is the more likely version of this story if you kind of cobble together all of the different rumors, and that's the one that makes the most sense. Even then, though, we're only looking at about a 60% likelihood that we will be seeing it happen that way. I think they're going to get Nakuti. I think they're going to get him to finish his contract. They're not just going to let him up. Disney's not going to just let you out of your contract. They're going to make you do better and then fire your ass. No, I don't think they're going to fire him. I think they're going to hold him to his contract. Once his contract is up, then we'll get a new doctor, and then things will start to correct themselves, it would seem. So again, 60% likely that it is going to happen in the way that we just laid out. From there, let's talk about the Tomb Raider series over at Amazon Prime. So reportedly, Tomb Raider is also canceled. Also, this is related to another story that we've talked about, the fact that Jennifer Salk is no longer working at Amazon. She was set to be a producer, or the producer, on the show. The showrunner was set to be Phoebe Waller-Bridge. The rumor goes on to say that she has been demoted, whatever the hell that means. It's not like she was a direct employee. She's not under contract with Amazon outside of the fact that she was writing the show for them. Like, I don't think she has like a first option contract with Amazon. I'm pretty sure she was contracted to do this show, no longer interested in her input, so that would imply that she's fired, right? This is another situation where I think saying the show has been canceled is a bit harsh on the language, because Tomb Raider, once again, is one of those properties that is so large, there's always going to be fan interest. So it's never going to be fully canceled. It's just going to be, this iteration is no longer happening. We're going to change gears and do a more appropriate iteration. So canceled, maybe not. Will we see the Phoebe Waller-Bridge version of this? I'm doubtful. But there's honestly so much that could go either way. So much that this rumor is relying on us kind of just assuming is going on behind the scenes. I can't really give it too much, and it's not coming from super great sources. So we're just gonna go right up the middle with this one. It's neither super likely nor super unlikely. 50% that the current iteration of Tomb Raider is dead in the water over at Amazon. From there, we have a Stargate rumor. This one also related to Jennifer Salk's ousting. New Stargate show is reportedly in the works because Salk was the biggest issue with it not happening. When Amazon bought MGM and James Bond, they also, one of the biggest properties, one that they named by name when they made the announcement that they were going to be making the purchase, was Stargate. Salk was not happy with the idea of doing a Stargate show. Now that she's gone, reportedly, a Stargate show is in the works. This, depending on which rumor monger you're listening to, is being billed as either a reboot of the entire franchise, which I highly doubt they would do, or it is being billed as a continuation of the franchise, which seems more likely, seems more in the vein of the way this franchise works. So going on that, I'm going to say we're looking at about 70% likely. Very explicitly, because this comes from a pretty decent source, but more specific even is that this was dropped by name by Amazon themselves when they made that purchase. So of course they would be excited to put something out there that they know has a giant fan base. So 70% likely that we're going to be seeing Stargate sooner rather than later over at Amazon. Now let's switch gears for a minute now and talk about some video game rumors. First up, we have PlayStation. This is a console rumor, so not as reliable as our gaming, like game-related rumors, but still, PlayStation, the big rumor here is the next generation console, which everyone is working on at this point because we're kind of nearing the end of a generation. Fairly close, which is weird to consider because I don't feel like my Xbox Series is that old at this point, but we are getting near the end of the generation. So PlayStation, big rumor here is that their next generation of consoles is going to be two-tiered. Not exactly the biggest news. It is, though, going to be different than the last two generations in that the lower tier is going to attempt to take a little bite out of the market that Nintendo has created with the hybrid console. Reportedly, the lower end version of the PlayStation 6 is going to be a handheld console, much like the Nintendo Switch. And then the higher end version is going to be the more traditional side of, an actual leave it connected to your television kind of console. It has been some time since someone truly challenged Nintendo. The last time someone even attempted to challenge Nintendo, it was Sony then. It seems to be going to be Sony now. Also, gaming rumors just generally have a lot of momentum by the time they get out there. So that's why we're going as high as we are. I think this is being a little bit kind of risky when we go this high for this, but I'm saying about 70% likely that the next generation PlayStation console will be, the lower end will be a handheld and the higher end will be a traditional console. Again, staying with the gaming rumors, we now have word that the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders are going live fairly soon. How soon? The 23rd, it would seem. Some Canadian retailers who Canada's supply of Nintendo Switch 2s is directly related to the North American US supply of Nintendo Switch 2s. We'll get to that in a moment. But some Canadian retailers are listing the 23rd of April, forgot what month we were in, 23rd of April as the date that the pre-orders are going to be going live. Since that is apparently the case, then that would lend one to believe that it also is going to be the same in the US, because all of the Switch 2 consoles that are going to be making their way into Canada are going to be funneled through the US because that's the way they consolidate their shipping. There's a consolidation company apparently in Washington somewhere, Seattle, I believe I've heard. And that's so they ship all of their consoles basically for North America to Seattle, and then from Seattle they're dispersed through Canada and the US and I think maybe Mexico, but that has not been part of this story at all. So yeah, that is the disbursement point through which Nintendo goes through. So if Canada says the 23rd is the day, then it's very likely that the US is going to be the 23rd as well. So we're going to say about 90% likely that we will be able to pre-order Switch 2s on the 23rd of April. Staying again in the rumor mill, Fortnite leaks. I put leaks in the rumor mill because usually leaks can go either way. With Fortnite, it seems like it's just somebody gets a little bit excited and starts sharing information early. So that I think this is just kind of in that vein. We have leaked crossovers with a bunch of different properties. I think is a strong word considering who the first one is, but we're going to say properties. Jack Black is going to be in Fortnite. Not Jack Black as Steve from Minecraft, but Jack Black. Just Jack. He's going to be a crossover. We have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater crossovers. I heard from different sources. One source said that it was going to just be Tony Hawk. Another source implied that it's going to be multiple skaters from the Tony Hawk Pro Skater franchise. And then it went on to say that it is going to be there's going to be a special Tony Hawk event in Fortnite that is correlated to the release of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 that is going to be coming out later this year, if memory serves correctly. But that's not it. We have more Mortal Kombat characters. The first leak that I saw for this specifically that name dropped Mortal Kombat had a picture of Shang Tsung specifically. Seems to imply that it's going to be more villainous characters this time around, if not just Shang. Death Stranding 2 also going to have an event reportedly when that game launches is when we're going to see the crossover there. We have more Marvel crossovers. We have a Double Dragon crossover that got leaked. Doom the Dark Ages crossover, which Doom Guy in Fortnite, that's kind of awesome. So you can legit do Doom Guy versus Master Chief in Fortnite. That's, yeah. Hitman crossover, which we're going to talk about the implications for that one in just a minute. Kingdom Come Deliverance, and NBA players over in Fortnite. So this is kind of an extension of the idea of Fortnite as platform more than it is a game where you can go developers develop games inside of Fortnite, or even like concert experiences and so on and so forth. So what was it? It was Double Dragon and Hitman. Double Dragon has a side-scroller beat-em-up game coming out, so that's probably the cross promotion there. But Hitman, to my understanding, has not really been in the gaming conversation for a little while now. So I feel like these Fortnite leaks, because they happen with some regularity, they're almost an indication of things to come as far as like what's in development for other gaming publishers and developers and such. I'm very likely missing it because Hitman is not really a franchise we talk about in gaming much, even when it is in the news. So I very likely am just missing something here, but this is a really interesting way to get knowledge of future things, which I think is also factoring in because we have more Mortal Kombat crossover information. I think that's factoring into Mortal Kombat rumor we're about to talk about. So yeah, it's more of a announcing cross promotion because there's going to be an event with said IP. If that IP has been kind of laying low for a while, we know they're actually cooking something. So it's pretty interesting. I honestly think that all of these are, because they're all from the regular sources for these leaks, very likely to be happening. So we're going to say about 90% likely that incredible list of crossovers is accurate. I really have no reason to believe otherwise. Speaking of very likely gaming rumors, we have two more gaming rumors, but one more that is super, super likely, and that is Fallout 3. The remaster for Fallout 3. We now know Oblivion is actually a lot closer than we anticipated, but we'll talk about that probably not next week. It's not going to be a show next week, but next time we have an episode, there will be stuff. I have to dig a little bit deeper before we can really talk about that. But Fallout 3, we have a leaker coming out and saying that the remake is a long way off, and that's only a minor paraphrase. This adds up in so many ways because Bethesda is more than just stretched thin. They're basically damn near breaking from the stretch they're undergoing right now. They're working on the Oblivion. I think that one's actually being farmed out, but still, they're overseeing the Oblivion remake. They're working on Starfield, fixing it, and also the new game. They're also working on to some degree, they're working on Fallout 5. There's a team actively working on Fallout 76. We have the next Elder Scrolls game that they've been teasing for some time, that there's probably the most attention is being paid there. So all of these projects that are going on under the hood over at Bethesda doesn't leave a whole lot of room for Fallout 3. Eventually, we will very likely see it. It's going to be a number of years, probably like 5 more years would be my guess before we see Fallout 3. So the fact that this is a rumor is kind of silly, but we're going to say 95% likely that it is going to be a long time before we see Fallout 3 remastered. And then our final gaming rumor, there's more rumors, but this final gaming rumor is Combat Pack 3 for Mortal Kombat 1 is now being rumored to actually be happening, whereas up until now it's been rumored to be the end of Mortal Kombat 1 and we're moving into the next age of whatever NetherRealm is cooking up. I misspoke. It's not Combat Pack 3, it's going to be the next story mode DLC. Combat Pack 3 would imply 6 playable characters. I don't think it's going to be that big, though I do think there's going to be a less substantial, though still story DLC for the game. We're going to put this, and variations of this rumor have come out from a number of different sources, none of which are the regular sources. So we can't go as high as I want to. And even the 80% that we're putting this at I think is a little bit high. I think there's still a stronger chance that it won't happen. I honestly, if I'm being honest with myself, I would probably put this just over halfway, but it's Mortal Kombat and I'm super hopeful, so 80%. But then we have one more rumor, not gaming related. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia related. There is a rumor that Brad Pitt is going to find his way into a guest spot in the next season, season 17 over on Brad Pitt on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. This, surprisingly, there's a pretty decent chance this actually will happen because Rob McElhenney, or Mac on the show, has weird connections, and like, it's really not that many degrees of separation to go from Rob to Brad Pitt. And Brad Pitt has an amazing sense of humor, so like, sure. This does not come from a great source. This again is probably just a lot of wishful thinking, which is why we went as high as we did, but man, I really feel like it's not very hard to get all of those planets to align to get Brad Pitt onto It's Always Sunny. So we're going to say about 75% likely that we will at least get some sort of cameo from Brad Pitt in season 17. Maybe it might take another season to be season 18, but still within the next 2 seasons, I'm super convinced that we will get some sort of Brad Pitt on the screen in It's Always Sunny. So that's what we got for our rumors. Let's talk now about some speculation going on in the rumor mill. So I have 2 pieces of speculation that I want to talk about. First up is the Fantastic Four First Steps. Talked about at the beginning of the year when I did the predictions for the year, how I thought that Fantastic Four was going to be kind of mid and underperform expectations. Maybe not lose money, but definitely underperform. I think that now at this point it's borderline going to lose money. We have heard a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. We also have some information from Deadline about how they're going to be updating the story for quote unquote modern audiences. I think we are witnessing the remnants of the poor decision making of the last 8 years or so. And this is going to, more than underperform, is going to be actively not good and is going to actively, I still think it might break even. I'm not going to say it's going to lose money just yet, but before I thought maybe they would make a little bit. Now I think they're going to barely break even with the Fantastic Four movie. So that's kind of where I'm at there. And then our other piece of speculation for this episode is Mortal Kombat 1. Just to kind of expand on the rumors that we've got, I do think that we're going to be getting a story mode DLC just because we've got indications from Ed Boon throughout the entirety of this. He's never once fed into the idea that Combat Pack 3 was not going to be happening, or some sort of expansion beyond what we already have is not going to be happening. He's definitely never leaned into that. He's always leaned into this is going to get more support than previous games. There was a little rocky bit there for a while, I'm not going to lie, as far as the situation with Warner Brothers and WB Discovery, but the big heads over at WB Discovery came out and said that Mortal Kombat was one of the franchises that they wanted to lean into because it was one of the few that was actively making them money. With development for a brand new game some years away for NetherRealm, it would make sense that now that they've got this reinvigorated support from the upper-ups, we have the Fortnite stuff that I'm sure did very well for them. We have the new movie coming out, so they're going to be selling a bunch of skins. They released the MKX Scorpion and Sub-Zero skins, which I'm sure made them quite a bit of money. There's been a number of things that have just kind of went fairly well to their advantage very recently, since that rocky bit happened a couple of months ago, or a few months ago at this point. So I think there's going to be some sort of expansion beyond what we currently have, beyond the Chaos Reigns expansion. I honestly think it's going to be a bit smaller than Chaos Reigns, but it is only going to be Mortal Kombat characters. We're looking at, I'm assuming, I'm speculating that there's going to be 3 Mortal Kombat characters from previous rosters. I don't think they're going to introduce any new characters, but I also don't think there's going to be any more cameo character, or any more guest characters, I should say. There's definitely likelihood that they're going to be introducing at least one more cameo character as well. Who that could be, I don't know. Kai, maybe, but really the big thing here is I think we're getting 3 more characters before they move on to the next game. There's reason to believe the next game will be Injustice, but there's a lot of people out there who are thinking it's going to be the sequel to Mortal Kombat 1. I'm not ready to speculate on that one just yet, but I do think we're going to be seeing a little bit more support for MK1 before it gets to the end. And that's what we got for Speculation Nerds. That's also kind of the end of the rumor mill.
Subscribe. That is all.
Which then puts us squarely into housekeeping. This week's housekeeping, just kind of a heads up, things have changed a little bit as far as next week goes. Obviously, this week was a little bit late. Work is a bitch. I don't know what to tell you. But next week's episode is not going to be happening. Very likely what we're going to have next week is a couple of reaction videos, and the That Just Happened catch up is what I'm planning on at the most. Probably just That Just Happened. If we only get one video next week, that's what it's going to be. But yeah, next week we're not going to be doing a news episode proper. The week following, I will not be in town to do a news episode proper, so we might get a Nerdy Suggestions 2 weeks out, and then even the week beyond that is looking like there might not be a proper episode as well. So lots of reactions in our future in order to keep the content coming. Probably a reaction or suggestion video, and at the very least 2 more from, as I'm filming this right now, we'll be looking at 2 more That Just Happened episodes, because I did one last week that hasn't been edited yet. I plan on recording another one tonight that will go up next week. So that's what we're looking at as far as housekeeping goes. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at with everything. So thank you very much, nerds, for sticking around to the end. If you've stayed here, then you must really love the sound of my voice. I appreciate your faces. If I missed something, let me know in the comments down low. Please tell everyone you know, though, about the show, because that is the way that these things grow. That is a lot of rhyming that was only kind of planned. So again, the only way for this to grow is for you to tell friends, foes, family, whoever, that this is where you're getting your entertainment news, because this is a conversation. I don't talk down to you. I do try and explain as much as possible on the off chance that maybe you're not as up to speed as the rest of us, or as some of us, or as the few of us. But this is still a conversation, and I do try and treat it as such with the audience. So definitely, again, leave comments, let me know what's going on. If you have not yet subscribed, which many of you haven't, then do that as well while you're here. And that's kind of where we're going to leave it. So thank you very much, nerds. We'll see you in the next one. It's going to be a weird couple of weeks, but there will be a next one, I promise. We'll see you then. Before we go, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.